Am I wrong in summarizing this? That when I hear Ryan Poles or Matt Eberflus talk about specific players, when I hear Matt Eberflus rave about Jalen Johnson, and remember, they didn't draft Jalen Johnson, but he's become his guy, and he's even said to us on his show with us, I love Jalen Johnson. Or when Ryan Poles talks about Tevin Jenkins, who wasn't starting off as his guy, now how they love him, or the guys that he did draft, and he was raving in a pregame a couple weeks ago about Bajent and some other guys that he can be effusive with his praise. But when any of them talk about Justin, it's very muted. Am I wrong there, or do you read the room the same way?
No, and I think I've heard you say this before because we can go back to Ryan Poles' press conference right before the start of the season, so August, after roster cutdown day, and he was very specific in what he wanted to see from Justin Fields. It was an open-ended question about the improvement from year 2 to year 3, and it was just along the lines of take less sacks, get the ball out quicker, run less. I think I'm paraphrasing on that. He said something about, using his legs kind of in the moments where he needs to out of desperation, not just deferring to that. But I think Poles has been consistently measured in his approach, the way that he talks about the quarterback, because you're not going to hook up your anchor to somebody that you don't know. You don't know if he's going to be here next year, if he's going to be your starting quarterback in 2024. So it's the smart thing not to go all in on somebody who you may end up having to make that hard choice about down the line after these 7 games. But where we're at different from last year, where this team had 3 wins and was going into the back end of the season, they actually do have things to evaluate with the quarterback. These are not just 7 throwaway games and then they turn the page to 2024. They truly are trying to get the best evaluation, whether it's going to be for them keeping him in this system and building around him, or them trying to get a good draft pick if they want to move on from him.
Yeah. So do you believe at this particular time they have a strong feeling about how they perceive Justin and what they're going to do? And then I guess the second part of that question would be, how much can he impact that over the next 7 weeks?
I do think they have a strong idea of what he is right now, but there's also several pointed areas that they want to see improvement from. And you can hear it in the press conferences. I asked Luke Getsy about this last week, the whole idea of him taking less sacks. And there are moments because those 0 sacks that the 0-yard sacks he'll take because he is somebody who will scramble and he can make big plays. He might rip off a 15, 20-yard play the next play because he is such a dynamic athlete. But it's the ones where he's hanging in the pocket too long and the unnecessary sacks. That stuff has to go down. And I think the Bears, the whole Bears brass has a checklist of items that they still want to see from the quarterback. Is 7 games enough? I mean, that seems like a very tall task. I mean, the amount of pressure for Fields to A, stay healthy, to B, play through something that's not at 100% yet. I mean, he even said that. He still feels some residual pain in the thumb, and I don't know if that's going to go away. But he's got a lot that he has to do to ace this sort of test. And honestly, it kind of feels like he has to play perfect here, the final 7 games, in order for them to say, okay, no questions asked, he's our starter for 2024.
Well, it's a different conversation if they have the 14th or 15th pick. This is a conversation because they have, at the moment, the number 1 overall selection and what everyone has perceived to be as a quarterback-rich draft coming up. So it's an interesting dynamic. My hope is that they use the same microscope, not just on the quarterback, but other important roles being played or filled by different people in the organization.
I think they have to. I mean, I know that Matt Eberflus's comments yesterday didn't sit well with I don't think he said anything wrong, but I think some people look at that and say, well, you too need to show consistency. You too need to show the improvement over the next 7 games. Same with Luke Getsy. I think it's a job interview for all 3 of them, if I'm being completely honest.
And it should be.
Yeah.
It should be.
Tell us what you think about Justin's thumb, because when he spoke yesterday, there were a couple things, and I retweeted some of the quotes that you sent out. When he's talking about, look, he tried the glove, he didn't like the glove, he's still taping it. He says it's still not totally healed. Mm-hmm. So he's cleared, and like I've always said to Waddle, I've never heard of a quarterback with a finger or thumb injury on their throwing hand when they suffer it that year, that it's not a problem the rest of the year.
Sure.
It usually doesn't get better till the following year.
And I mean, it's been 4 weeks, like just over a month since it was a month yesterday that he dislocated it. And I was a little surprised when he wasn't wearing the glove. When we saw him out there at practice last week, even, he was wearing some sort of like purple-ish, it was like a wrap almost on it. I don't know if it was tape or something else, but the glove helps with your grip strength. That's why quarterbacks with smaller hands end up wearing them, so you can grip the football. And he said it was hindering his ability to throw. It wasn't comfortable, and he's never worn it. So I think if you're asking him to do it now, it's going to be a different feel. It might be, they've got to also go through the process this week. How can he take snaps out of the shotgun? How can he take snaps under center? Are those going to be comfortable? Because you got to make sure that immediately when the ball's snapped, you secure it, and you can't necessarily do that if you feel there's a hindrance to what is on your thumb. I was surprised when he said that he may or may not tape it up Sunday. I thought that was going to be like bare minimum. It was going to be taped up, and I'm sure they are going to have to monitor that based on how it looks, if there's any swelling, if there's any sort of residual pain, because the number one thing, ball security cannot be an issue here. Otherwise, they're going to be regretting that decision very quickly. And if it's not just interceptions, it's fumbles. And if he falls again, if he gets sacked, how do you protect yourself? Like, we made the joke all offseason about Tua learning how to fall via jiu-jitsu. Is there a version of that for Justin Fields to protect his thumb so he doesn't fall on it again and just the natural reaction of going to the ground and then dislocate it? And he said, all that matters is even if I get hurt again, the ball's protected, which I'm sure he doesn't want that to happen because that's the rest of his season if he ends up getting hurt.
Yeah, you also have to factor in, like, the league is filled with, they're not evil people, but they're not choir boys. So any opportunity.
Oh, they're going after that.
Yeah, every opportunity for a Detroit Lion defender to actually
Swat at the ball.
Yeah, to make
That's it.
contact with the thumb, and then you just have to be aware of it, and it's just so unfortunate for him because it's the thumb on his throwing hand. But
Thayer mentioned before, Waddle, about read option plays.
Yeah.
That's a tough play to
Sure.
make because
You got the
you've
ball
got
in
to
the
pull
belly
the
of the
ball,
running
right,
back.
right, and he's grabbing onto it, and you've got to keep it there
Yeah.
to the last minute. Then you have to grab it out. Could that tweak it or bother him more? Would they shy away from read options?
And
because of that?
there's a lot of zone read with Tyson Bagent in the last couple of weeks. I remember that specifically with the New Orleans game. Maybe that's something that they try to, working around that, because the operation of that has to be seamless. You have 1 second to make sure either you're pulling it or the running back's going to end up taking the handoff. This is a good week, though, for them, for him to scramble, for him to even more design runs for Justin Fields. They had the Lions defense had a big problem. I know Lamar was literally perfect passing in week 7 against Detroit, but he had 9 scrambles for 36 yards, which is not a great stat line, but I think 4 of those went for first downs, including a touchdown. Like, this year, they have not defended running quarterbacks very well. So that could be a weapon that the Bears think they want to pull out because they really haven't asked Justin to do that much with his legs this year. They haven't said don't scramble. That's, a skill that he can utilize and he always will. But I would not be surprised to see some design runs, knowing maybe some of those limitations on the hand and also that he might not be able to, I know they say, he's cleared, he can make every throw. He might not be able to make all those deep throws, and that could be the workaround for that.
what is their situation with their running backs? Is Khalil Herbert expected to go? And I know Foreman's working off of a bit of an ankle injury.
Yeah, I talked to Foreman today. He said that because remember, there was no injury designation for him in the game.
Right.
Like, he went into the tent. It was 10 minutes. He's running up and down the sideline. He said that, it was painful. And seeing him in the locker room afterwards, he could barely walk. And so this week, to just see him walking to and from the locker room and then him practicing, there was a lot of swelling that had to go away. So it sounds like he's trending in the right direction. He definitely seemed optimistic. They just waived Arrington Evans, so that's your spot for Khalil Herbert. I know that you and I were both expecting somebody else might have been in that
Yes,
spot.
Bayless.
But no.
They want to keep him.
They want to
keep him.
I don't think that it's not going to happen, I guess.
We should all find someone in our lives that
Yes.
love us the way that the front office loves Bayless Jones.
Richard Hightower said he had his best special teams practice of the year yesterday. Just for what that's worth.
That is one of
I just
the,
want you to know
with
that.
I don't know
about
Richard
practice.
Hightower at all, but That's one of the strangest statements I've ever heard. Not blaming you. I'm just saying, like,
I know.
I mean, like,
what do they do in special teams
don't-
practice?
I don't know.
Like, isn't it all in slow motion anyway?
Right,
Like,
because it's the most likely place to get hurt if everyone's going full speed.
Yeah, it's but no, I mean in terms like I'll be really curious to see what that backfield looks like because we saw it for more or less a half
Yeah.
in Washington. Nothing really came to fruition against Green Bay, and that was the only 2 times that those two had been active. Foreman has played his way into a role here. There's
he's a
no
good player.
possible way that you can make him inactive again, nor would you want to. They complement each other, and you also have to like compensate for the other side of that when you've got a very dynamic backfield that can put up a lot of yards, that can, affect you in the passing game with what Detroit does. If you're going to try to match that, you're going to try to have the full complement of your running backs up there.
Yeah, their only problem is especially with Justin, who hangs onto the ball a little bit longer. He just plays the position differently than Bajan. You need somebody in the backfield that can help you protect.
Yeah.
And
They were
that's
working
Roshan
on-
Johnson more than anybody.
Agreed. And they were working on pass pro drills when we
Yeah.
were out there, the portion we got to see of practice today. So I think very clearly against that defensive line, I mean, they don't just get pressure with Aiden Hutchinson and what's the other guy, Mims up front. Like Julian,
Houston's out, right? He's been out for a while. Is it?
yes.
Yeah. I think
Julian
so.
Aquara's there. Alex Anzalone. Like they've got they those mug looks, those double A gap blitz. Like that's how they pressure quarterbacks, and they've been very effective, kind of spreading the wealth up front. So they're going to have their work cut out for them with the new combination. I guess it's the 11th or 12th combination of offensive linemen that we will have seen this year, and the running backs in pass pro.